prison walls stood tall and lifeless, cold stone and steel surrounding a man who carried a fire inside him. His name was KADIAN, and his passion burned heavier than the chains on his wrists. He had been sentenced to this place, not because of his crimes alone, but because the world outside feared what he carried within, a vision, a purpose that could not be caged. They called him dangerous, a force of chaos, but it called himself a man with a mission. Day after day, Cade sat in his cell, unmoving, unyielding, his eyes fixed on the small crack in the ceiling, where sunlight dared to break through. It reminded him of what lay beyond freedom, purpose, a chance to reclaim what had been stolen from him. He did not speak to the guards, he did not speak to the other prisoners. He let this silence speak for him, a vow, a promise that he would not be broken. The guards tried to crush him. They threw him into solitary confinement where darkness swallowed him whole. They stripped him of his few belongings, leaving him with nothing but the clothes on his back and the fire in his soul. They fed him scraps, they denied him comfort, they laughed in his face and told him he was already dead. But Cady did not waver. He sat in the dark with his thoughts, shaping them into weapons, sharpening them until they cut deeper than any blade. Cade's passion was not for revenge, though it would have been easy to let it consume him. His passion was for justice, for the life he had lost and for the ones who had suffered. As she had a heart of the faces of his family, the ones who had been taken from him. He thought of the lies that had placed him in this cage, and he swore to himself that he would see the sun again, not as a prisoner, but as a man free and whole one day. They put them to work in the yard, shovels in hand. The prisoners dug trenches under the watchful eyes of armed guards. Cade's muscles burned, his back ached, but he did not slow down. He worked with a purpose. Every swing of the shovel, every clump of dirt that fell was a step closer to his goal. He studied the routines of the guards, the blind spots in their patrols, the weaknesses in the walls. She spoke to Noon, but he listened and he learned. When the other prisoners saw the fire in Cade, they began to follow his lead. They worked harder. They moved with purpose. Whispers spread through. They heard stories of a man who would not break, who carried something inside him that no prison could take away. They began to believe in him, and for the first time, Cady allowed himself to hope. The day came when the cracks in the prison's armor became too large to ignore. Cade had spent months planning, studying, waiting for the right moment. The guards' shifts overlapped, leaving a narrow window of opportunity. The walls of the storage building were weaker than the main structure. A storm was forecasted to drown out the noise of their escape. Everything aligned like pieces of a puzzle. Cade led the others with a silent nod and a look that spoke louder than words. They moved in the dead of night, shadows slipping through cracks and corridors, hearts pounding but feet steady. They reached the wall, and Cade's hands worked quickly, tools fashioned from scraps hidden beneath his mattress, over weeks of preparation to re-through the weak points in the stone. As the storm raged above them, Cade and the others climbed into the night air. Freedom was within reach, but the alarms screamed louder than the thunder. Guards poured out of the barracks, rifles raised. Cade turned to face them, his body a shield, his voice a roar that cut through the chaos. Go, he shouted to the others, run, don't stop, no matter what. The prisoners scattered into the storm, and Cade stood his ground, his fists clenched, his body battered but unbroken. The guards descended on him, but they fought with the strength of a man who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He took the blows, the kicks, the strikes of batons, but it did not fall. He had made his choice. He would give them a chance to live, even if it cost him his own. When the dust settled and the storm passed, Cade lay on the ground, bloodied but alive. The guards dragged him back to his cell, his bow bruised and broken, but his spirit intact. They thought they had won, but Cade knew the truth. He had lit a fire in the hearts of those men, and that fire would spread beyond these walls, no matter what they did to him. Cade sat in his cell once more, staring at the crack in the ceiling where sunlight poured through. It seemed brighter now. Warm, a race of fit to carried the promise of freedom. He closed his eyes and let the warmth wash over him, his passion heavy, his purpose clear. He had not escaped, but he had won, and he would carry that victory with him until the day he could finally bar. 3 months passed, and the guards grew complacent, thinking they had tamed Cade. Boot in the quiet of his cell, his mind worked tirelessly. He studied the walls, the gates, the routines of the guards, the sounds of the locks, and the timing of the patrols. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle he had vowed to complete. This time he would not fail. This time he would not stop until the walls of the prison crumbled before him. He began to gather tools again, scraps of metal hidden in his mattress, stones sharpened into makeshift blades. She communicated with the others through glaw, incessant subtle gestures, building a network of trust and unity. He knew he could not do it alone, and he knew they were ready to follow him to the end. The night of the escape arrived, and the air buzzed with tension. KADIAN the Monsmore, this time with a plan more intricate, more daring than before. They moved like shadows, avoiding the guards, slipping through cracks and climbing over barriers. They reached the main gate, where Cade's hands worked quickly to dismantle the lock with tools he had fashioned from discarded scraps. The gate groaned as it opened, and the prison bars surged forward, but this time the guards were faster. They poured into the yard, their weapons shouting orders to stop. Cade's voice cut through the chaos. Not this time, hero, or his body a blur of motion, as she charged at the guards with the strength of a man who had nothing left to lose. The prisoners followed his lead, overwhelming the guards with sheer numbers and determination. Cade fought with every ounce of strength. He had his fists, his tools, his very body a weapon. Against those who sought to keep him caged, the battle was fierce, and the air was filled with the sounds of struggle, but Cade did not falter. He pressed on, driven by the fire that refused to be extinguished. Finally, the last barrier fell, and the prisoners spilled out into the open air. Freedom was theirs at last, but Cade did not stop. He stood at the edge of the prison, his chest heaving, his eyes scanning the horizon. "This is not just for us," she said, his voice is steady and resolute. "This is for everyone who has been caged, who has been silenced, who has been told they cannot fight back." With that, Cade led the men into the night, their footsteps fading into the distance, the fire in their hearts burning brighter than ever. The prison stood behind the monument to the strength of the human spirit and the unyielding power of a man with a passion too heavy to be chained. In life, you may be living a life like Cade's life, but all you need to is to fight with all your inner strength in order to overcome, because no one else is going to fight your fight.